Hey everybody, it's Zach. Welcome back to the Heroverse. And guys, I just got done with Stargirl Season 3, Episode 9, called The Monsters. Holy shit. I can't process what just went down. This episode went above and beyond of badassery and just making me feel the tension of, oh shit, this is going down. Of Courtney literally going to tell Cameron about the JSA, who's a part of the JSA, and what Jordan did, what Jordan's done being the leader of the ISA. Just this episode had so much tension build up. Like, I felt it throughout the entire episode, especially because, we start off this episode with, of course, Cameron's grandmother. She is looking, I guess, at some like book, and then she makes her way into Cameron's room, finds out Cameron's not there, and is upset because I guess Cameron's out in the garden and he's making a sculpture. She's angry because, she told him to stop doing art, and to find out, she finds, like his art book and sees a drawing of, Courtney, crumples it up, makes it all icy. She's just furious in this episode. The grandmother has had enough, saying, I'm done with people meddling in our plans to make Cameron follow, continue Jordan's, vision. And you could really tell that, it being called the monsters, it can lead to multiple different things, whether it be from the grandma or whether it be from Rick, which was crazy in this episode because, there was a lot going on, a lot of tension on the fact that, the grandmother wants Cameron to do what she wants him to do of following Jordan's vision. The grandpa, on the other hand, is kind of like, let him do his thing. It's kind of like realized through a conversation from the art teacher, because the art teacher came to the house and pretty much tried to, and kind of convinced, tried to tell the grandparents, like, yo, look, Cameron's really good at art and I can't let him not go, like, continue art. He has talents. He needs to be doing this. And pretty much the grandmother, like, eventually ends up killing the art teacher, which I was like, holy shit, meaning that she is done. She's just done. Even though the grandpa's like, oh, like, let's hear him out. He cares about Cameron, and the grandpa's kind of has an understanding that people really care about Cameron. Maybe we've been wrong. Maybe I kind of saw, how Jordan died because of his, his anger and his grief. That's what killed him. And it's not like the point of like, yeah, it's not just like, oh, the JSA killed him. It's like, no, he kind of killed himself in a way. You know what I mean? By his anger and his grief, that's what got him killed. And it's kind of like, like maybe we were wrong about, Cameron going down this path of, of Jordan. Maybe we need to let him do his own thing. Maybe let him find his own path and not just try to control him and make him continue Jordan's plan, because look where that led him, his anger and his grief. And we just see from their perspective that the grandma's just not having it, that Courtney's getting involved and kind of like making Cameron go off the path that they're trying to set him on. At least the grandma's really trying to set him on. So, we're with that. We cut to the title card, and then that's when, of course, we see Barb on the steps waiting for Pat, and of course Courtney to come home because they were on a bus trying to head back to Blue Valley after, of course, the events after last week's episode with Courtney and Pat helping out the Shade, and of course Jenny, and of course also Todd. So we pretty much while Jenny, Todd, and Shade want to go help out what was it, Sandman's, nephew or something, if I'm correct. So went to go help out, with that. And also Todd wants to, Shade's helping Todd learn how to control his abilities. That's when we have to get back to Blue Valley because, they had to take a bus because it was a far trip when Shade brought them to go help Jenny and all that. So we're back at the place. Right away, that's when Barb's like, oh, like, Yolanda's upstairs, go talk to her. And of course, Barb's trying to get, Pat to open up, Barb's trying to get Pat to open up about what he experienced about being in the Shadow Realms. And he's kind of hesitant on doing that because he kind of has a conversation with Barb saying, maybe, I feel like, my father said stuff that wasn't new to me, but there was one thing that really got to me. And it's the fact of maybe I'm thinking I'm going down my father's path. And, I'm going down the path of my father, and Mike is going to hate me, and me, not paying attention to Mike. And, I never told Mike really about his mother and about, what his mother did and stuff. And anytime he asked me to go, like, could he go see his mother, I just would tell him no, and he would end up stop asking. That whole sequence with Amy Smart and, of course, I can't remember on the top of my head, Luke Wilson. What great acting, because I felt it in that moment when he was saying, like, yo, like, Mike would keep asking me, can I see my mother? And I would just tell him no, and then he would just stop asking. And seeing Amy Smart, like, tearing up, that got me. Like, the whole scene got me of, like, you really feel for Mike in that moment, and, she kind of feels for Mike in the moment, like, he stopped asking, about seeing his mother, and he kind of can't help but not feeling like he was abandoned, and kind of has a way of, Pat's having the understanding of, like, oh my God, am I am I following the path of my father, where it's like, Mike feels like I'm abandoning him, and Mike feels like I'm not paying attention to him, and Mike is, feels like, Mike and Mike is going to hate me and all that. And just seeing, Pat realize all the stuff that we've kind of realized, of, like, Pat kind of ignoring Mike, that was a really nice moment to have him realize, maybe I need to start paying more attention to Mike, and maybe, maybe I need to, also, maybe I do need to let him, see his mother, you know what I mean? And so he can have closure, because, Barb said, it was really nice for, Courtney to have that closure, and it kind of brought me and Courtney closer, and it kind of gave her, just so she can move on. And it's like, Barb's like, maybe Mike needs that. Mike needs to go see his mother to have that closure, so that way he can move forwards, and, and that will bring you guys closer, because as we know, and we've been known since season 1, Mike and Pat have kind of, like, distanced, because Mike, as we see on his mission to trying to find out who's the killer around Blue Valley with Jakeem, he's trying to get respect not just from the group, but just get respect from his father, from Pat. And he's kind of like how Pat used to be that way to his father. He tried to get respect from his father, and Pat's kind of right. He is kind of following that the footsteps of his father, was that Mike is wanting Pat to respect him, and really bring him into the fold of the JSA, and really feel like, he can, contribute to the JSA team, and also feel like, not be, put down as, like, a kid, and just someone that just needs to be tossed aside. Pat's realizing that. And the moment, like, I think we're going to see probably in the future episode, we'll see, Mike, we see Pat take Mike to go meet his mother, and that's just going to be very interesting to me to see that when that moment happens, to see how Mike reacts to that, like, oh, you're letting me go see my mom, and just to see what stage his mother is in, because his mother kind of, like, she did drop Mike off at a shelter, and kind of left Mike, and it's kind of like, how will Mike, what vision does Mike see of his mother? Like, what does he think his mother's going to be like? Like, will that hurt him? Will it be that moment where, like, Courtney had her father up on a pedestal and thought it was Starman, until she actually got to meet her father, and it's kind of like, you're a piece of crap. But, she had someone to lean on, and someone that was there for her, which is Pat, which is her father. So will it be a moment where, like, he'll realize, oh my God, you know what I mean? I can't believe I wanted to meet you, or will he have an understanding of why she did what she did? It's going to be very interesting to see what the dynamic of how Mike reacts to his mother, and is it the mother that he's always thought his mother it was? So that's just going to be very interesting to me when we get to that point. But just seeing, Pat come out about that, I was like, about damn time you came out about this, because I was like, dude, you kind of have been ignoring Mike, and we've all been seeing this. That was a big key point in last season. And it's kind of like happening again, where he feels like he needs to get respect from everybody, and he needs to be he wants to be a hero. He wants to show people that he can contribute, and he can be a hero, and he can be an ally, and and he's just not some kid that just gets to get tossed to the side. He wants to contribute, and I feel like Jakeem kind of put his foot down in this episode, because we see Mike and Jakeem, and mainly Mike wants to go through this plan of, like, okay, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Like, let's not do paper, let's not do our paper out. Let's just focus on finding who the killer is. Because, yes, I understand that, they kind of, there is no leads right now, but we can still find the killer. Like, let's ignore our duties and let's just do this. But Jakeem's like, no, we need to go help Cindy. Maybe my pink pen and I, we can cure Cindy. Let's go do this. Like, let's do our paper out and let's go find Cindy, because Cindy had our back with those bullies, but we didn't have her back when the whole entire team kind of casted her out and made her sound like she was the monster. And Jakeem made a great point saying, she stood up for us. We got to stand up for her. Let's go find her and let's go cure her. Let's go do this. And I was like, let's go, Jakeem, bro. That's what I'm talking about. She stood up for you guys. You want to stand up for her. That's a true essence of a hero, where Mike just wants to get everybody to respect him. and just wants people to stop acting like people to stop treating him like he's just a kid, and and he has nothing to contribute. But I love how Jakeem's like, okay, we know they got this at hand. We know that the JSA team can find out who the killer is, but why don't we go help Cindy, because the JSA team isn't wanting to do that. They casted her out, and no one stood up for her as she stood up for us. So let's go stand up for her, and let's go help her get cured while they go find who the killer is. I was like, at least I was like, that's what I'm talking about, Jakeem. Do what you can do. Let them deal with all that bullshit, but let you go help Cindy because no one else will. And that's an essence of a hero. Jakeem's got it right. And Mike said, you know what? You're right. Fine. Before I change my mind, let's do our paper out, and let's go do this. Back at Courtney's place with talking to Yolanda, when Courtney got up the stairs and Yolanda's sitting at the window, looking out the window, I kind of thought that was a little bit cringy, because the moment where Courtney came up, Yolanda, and then they both turn, and then Yolanda's like Court or whatever, and then of course Courtney's like Yolanda, and then they run to each other, they give each other a hug. It was a little bit cringy, but I loved it though. It was something that needed to happen, where it's like they both need to put aside the bullshit, and after that awakening moment that Courtney had. She's like, I need to put everything behind us because this happened because I haven't been focused, and there is no room to not, for these petty squabbles. We need to come together, and, I need to make amends for my mistakes of putting somebody else first instead of our team first, because look what happens when I don't put the team first. Bad shit happens, and I'm letting my guard down. And she wants to make amends with the team. So, Yolanda says sorry for kind of, for her and really the team of kicking her off the team and stuff and making it sound like, she didn't care about the team. And, Courtney said, sorry, like, I do care about the team. I shouldn't have put anybody else first. I do care about the team. I'm sorry. And, and she, Yolanda was explaining about, how, she can't tell her parents. And Courtney's like, why can't you or whatever? And she's like, I just can't. They would never understand, Courtney. And I agree with Yolanda. Her parents would not understand. Look how Courtney doesn't understand how they are. So it's like, that's the thing. I was like, when Courtney's like, why don't you tell them? I was like, Courtney, no. Like, you're not supposed to be... Didn't you learn any... Sylvester needs to have the talk with Courtney about, like, look, you can't just be telling people, anybody about who you are, because it puts your family at risk. That's superhero 101. And Sylvester had that conversation with Beth. And Beth has been putting her family at arm's length, but look how Beth's been acting. She's been getting very irritated. She's been getting very angry. Especially from the team about the team doesn't see her as like a fighter. They see her as just a techie and stay out of the way. You're not a fighter while we go do this. And it's kind of like, she, in a way, is kind of like, in a way, upset at kind of like listening to the team, because she doesn't like the feeling of having her family at arm's length and not feeling close to her family anymore. She hates that feeling, because Beth is a family person. She likes being in with the family. And yes, it was very overwhelming that her family all of a sudden had interest in her when she showed them, I'm Dr. McNighter, and she revealed that she was Dr. McNighter. But it's kind of like, or Dr. Midnight, when she had that moment when she told them. But, she felt very overwhelmed. But the moment, Sylvester's like, you need to put your family at arm's length. They can't be involved because my sister died because she was in with my superheroing. She ended up dying. You need to put your family at arm's length so they don't get hurt. But it's been hurting her by her doing that. So, I really do love it, where, Yolanda, where they have that conversation with, when Courtney's like, I can't tell my family, I can't do that, Courtney. And, Courtney's like, look, I need you to do me a favor or whatever. I need you to have my back on this, like, because I have to tell you something. And right away, I was like, okay, she's going to tell Yolanda, like, look, I want to go tell Cameron. Not everybody is bad. You should know that, Yolanda, because, of course, with everything with Cindy. And, Yolanda admits to that when they're all sitting at the table at the cafeteria. Yolanda's admitting to the moment where, Courtney's saying sorry to Beth and Rick. And, Beth's like, okay, or whatever, I accept your apology. And, Rick was just sitting there. And Rick's like, he's like, yeah, Courtney, okay. And right from there, I was like, okay, good. And then Yolanda's like, you had something to tell them, Courtney? And then right away, they're like, what did you have to tell us? And then that's when Courtney says, I want to tell Cameron everything. And then right away, Rick's like, like, why? No, like, that's just, no, we're not doing that. Like, why are we doing that? And he's like, she's like, I want to, like, if we're going to date, I need to tell him everything. Like, I got to tell him. And then, Rick's like, well, just because you love the dude or just because you like the dude, you're going to tell him about all of us. You're going to tell him everything just because you like him. You're going to put all this at risk or put all of us at risk just because you like a dude. And it was, it was really upsetting because, Then we get to the moment where, Yolanda's like, well, I might have, judged Cindy too much. You know what I mean? I was right about Cindy a little bit, but I kind of, was rude to her, and I kind of, judged her. And it's kind of like, Yolanda's learning how Courtney's been, been open arms about, villains turning, kind of like, reforming and becoming good. Yolanda's kind of open to the idea of like, maybe I was wrong about, Cindy. Maybe I should have gave her a chance. I was a little bit right about her, but, she had a reason what she did. Maybe we should give Cameron a chance. And it's kind of like, Rick is like, had a teary-eyed moment where he's like, fine, Courtney, I got your back. I got everybody's back here. And I mean, you guys are my family, and I got every single one of you. I got your back. And don't say I didn't warn you. Or whatever, like, just in case, like, if this goes south, don't say I didn't warn you. And that was sad, just seeing Rick get very emotional about saying you guys are my family, and, and you guys know I'm here for all of you, and I got your back, and don't say I didn't warn you. Like, I got your back, Courtney, but don't say I didn't warn you. And that was a very hard moment for, Rick is just getting emotional on the fact I've been saying this, is that Rick is so protective of because he's never really had a family. His family got taken away from him. And for everybody else still has family, but in a way, this is Rick's family. There is no, Yolanda doesn't see eye to eye with her family, but she gets to go back with her family and have a family still. Courtney sometimes, has, sometimes on the, having, trouble with Pat sometimes, but there's still a family. They might have Beth might have some squabbles with her family, but her family's still going to be there. For Rick, he has no one. That's why he's so against telling Cameron, because of the connection that Cameron has of that Jordan was Cameron's father, and he was Lysicle, the leader of the ISA, and he kind of has a feeling that if we tell him, he'll want to come after all of us, and and it's dangerous. He doesn't want his family to get hurt because Courtney just has her blinders on because she likes a dude. It's like, he doesn't want the family to get hurt. He doesn't want to put the family in jeopardy just because she likes a dude and wants to tell the dude so that way she can date him. So, I do feel where Rick is coming from. I was getting really emotional when he said that, and he started to like tear up. It was hard for him to, say this and say, all right, Courtney, I got your back, but don't say I didn't warn you. It's like, it hurts that Courtney wants to, it hurts him that Courtney wants to do this, but he knows I don't want to lose you. You guys will always be my family. I always have your back. Courtney, I got your back. But don't say I didn't warn you. And then he was holding his hourglass like, okay, like I'm depending on this to defend my family. That's why he's been so eager to take out to get the hourglass correct and at least get it back to an hour. And he was so upset when it wasn't working. It was all over the place and it wasn't staying just for an hour. He's like, my family depends on me to have this to work. This protects my family, and that's why he was so eager to get it to work again. But when he found out, oh my God, I could take this out and it could last forever, he knew in that moment I can protect my family at all times. It's not just for an hour now. I can protect my family forever now with no problems. So really, he's really depending, and that's why he always has it on him, because he wants to make sure his family's okay, especially since a serial killer is on the loose, literally killing people around Blue Valley. On top of Courtney wanting to tell somebody that there's a chance he might try to hurt his family once he finds out that, Courtney and all of them were the reason that his father died. So, you can understand where Rick is coming from, and that this is his family. He wants to keep his family protected. And that just adds to it that Courtney wants to tell Cameron, the son of of Jordan, that was the leader of the ISA. So you understand where Rick is coming from in this moment. But going forward, after, I can't believe the grandmother, like I said, killed the art teacher, which I totally forget the dude's name, but like he said he dreamt about Cameron or whatever, like dreamt about like Cameron quitting art or dreamt about Cameron and what would happen to Cameron if he kept up not doing art anymore. And I'm thinking he might have abilities from when the art teacher got hurt in last season. I think he might have abilities because he said he dreamt of that of Cameron. And I'm thinking it might be what Cameron would have turned into if he would have stopped doing art, and if he would have let the grandparents lead him down Jordan's path. And he said, I can't do that. I can't stand by and let Cameron not continue with art, and me knowing what will happen because of my dream or whatever. I dreamt of this moment or whatever. So it's kind of like that. I can't believe the grandma killed him, but I knew that was going to happen because how furious she was in the beginning of this episode. And the grandpa was like, disgusted almost, like, I can't believe you just did that. So it's very interesting that he was kind of like realizing maybe I'm understanding that maybe, like, maybe we're putting Cameron down that path. Look how much he's hurting because he's not doing art anymore. I mean, I don't want him to go back down Jordan's path where, like, that got him killed by his anger and his grief. I don't want Cameron to be that way. And he kind of had that moment after the big fight sequence that went down. And that was really badass, the moment where the Beth and them are walking. It's Beth, Yolanda, and Rick. And in that moment, they're kind of like, Beth gets the sick, because right now we haven't seen Sylvester. Sylvester's been flying around to different Dragon King layers trying to find out where the pinpoint signal is coming from to wherever the cameras were coming from of the person that had, like, the cameras and stuff, or to find out who's been behind everything. And Beth kind of gets the ping that leads to the McKenna house, and right away Yolanda and Rick are like, oh hell no, you mean, like, the grandparents have been behind this thing the entire time. I don't think this is true. I'm thinking whoever's behind all this is doing that to make it look like they're behind everything. Kind of how, like, actually, I don't even know, really. But kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't them spying on everybody, because, I mean, there was cameras on the McKenna house, so it couldn't have been them. So that was very interesting to get them into the house, and they kind of, told Rick and told Yolanda, oh shit, we were wrong. I was right to have my guard up because, Cameron's grandparents have been behind everything. They've been the ones spying on us. So the moment where Rick busts in as Courtney's about to tell, Cameron about, your father isn't who he said he was, and then Rick comes busting through the door, and this is the moment where, like, when Courtney's about to said to Cameron, your father wasn't who he said he was, and then the grandma comes in and says, you shut your mouth or whatever, and like a big fight's about to go now, I feel like, at this moment. And then that's when, Rick comes crashing through the door and says, I warned you, or like says, oh, they've been the ones spying on us, and I warned you or whatever. And I was like, or he says, I warned you. And then I think it cuts to, like, they've been the ones spying on us. And that was crazy when, when he does cut through, like, smash through the door. And then Courtney's like, I warned you or whatever. And they've been the ones spying on us. And then that's when Courtney says, that's Rick. That moment was, like, crazy when we cut back, and the whole big fight's going down right now, and Courtney's like, that's Rick or whatever, and then just a whole fight breaks loose between Rick and Cameron, and that was badass. And then the grandma gets in it with Yolanda when Yolanda comes in the house, and then the grandpa gets in it with Beth, and Beth finding out that she has AI fight capabilities in the goggles, like she has fight AI in the goggles that have never, that I guess have never been used before, that were like kind of like prototypes, that she is able to fight. After Yolanda just said, Beth, stay out here, you're not a fighter. We find out from Beth's parents, because Beth's dad calls, it says, oh, like, oh, you mean, like, I says, like, oh, like, and Beth's father calls, and Beth's like, how'd you get this number? He's like, I'm using a burner phone. And then that's when, he hears glass break or whatever, something break, because the grandpa shatters the glass by using his ice abilities. And then Beth's father's like, what's that noise? And she's like, oh, bad guy. And then that's when, Beth's father's like, your suit, we talked to Dr. McNider, and he said the suit has prototype fight capabilities of fight coordination and stuff. And I'm talking, there's like different fight style coordination, like fight styles inside the goggles, and the goggles were telling her how to roll, how to punch, how to do whatever. I was like, oh my god, the cape has like a shield capability. When the grandpa shot ice at Beth, she was able to shield with the cape. That was so badass, and it just pisses me off even more that WB and X Network or Net X, I forget what it's called, X Star, the people that bought CW are canceling this show and only giving the show this season. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you, WB and Nexstar? What is wrong with you? And it's crazy to me that WB is going through with this and letting Nexstar do this instead of just moving Stargirl to HBO Max. Because, I mean, is it really impossible? You have Titans on HBO Max and it's going on to their 4th season. How is that shit going on to their 4th season? But you're going to get rid of this peak ass show with the best fight choreography. I kid you not. I was on the edge of the love seat on the couch, or on the couch, literally jumping up and down during this fight sequence, because it was badass to see Rick and Cameron fight, especially Rick was kicking Cameron's ass until the end of the fight because he got really upset when, you know, we see I forget what happens when the grandmother says to Cameron, they're the ones that killed your father. He gets pissed and literally, like, Cameron gets the upper hand on Rick, ends up sucker punching him into the steps, which I'm a little confused. Cameron does not have strength. What the hell are we doing here? On top of that, he was flipping around like he's been doing this for years. That was a little bit of bullshit, not gonna lie. I feel like, if anything, Rick should have won that whole fight. Got to the point where he picked up Cameron, got to that point, and then he started freezing Rick's hands, and then that's when he got the upper hand on Rick, and pretty much sucker punched him into the steps and was about to take him out at that moment, because he had the upper hand, Rick, until the moment where the grandmother was like, they killed your father. That's when he started to get the upper hand on Rick and ended up sucker punching him into the steps. And at that moment, Rick's hourglass kind of it ran out of sand. It was all gone. It was almost like, I thought it was 24 hours. Why does it look like the sand's just down now? I was like, that's a little bit weird. So I don't know if he lost his abilities in that moment, because it looked like Rick got hurt in that moment. And I was a little concerned for Rick. I was like, oh my God, is he dying? I was like, oh my God. But how about freaking Artemis ends up coming in the fight too, helping Beth out, fighting the grandfather, or the grandpa. So that was very funny to me that Artemis came out of nowhere. And I was like, really? I was really happy, but I was like, how did Artemis, one, know we're here? And two, writers don't make us think that we didn't forget that you've been ignoring it, been putting this character to the side this entire time until this moment. I was like, yes, it's cool that Artemis is in here helping Beth fight, but even they got taken out by the grandpa ended up throwing Artemis into the ceiling, and then ended up while Beth was trying to go help Artemis, ended up icing the floor so Beth would slide into the wall. And Yolanda's out because Yolanda got pinned up against the wall and got iced, and then got pushed through the wall, and then she was out for the count. I mean, she got back up, but she was out though. And pretty much the grandpa and the grandmother got an upper hand in the fight, which was very weird because they got some skill. Yeah, just because they're old don't mean they got skill, because the grandma was keeping up with Yolanda pretty damn good, and the grandpa started getting into it too with Artemis and also Beth. But I still think but that made a little bit more sense to me than freaking Cameron coming out of nowhere doing flips on the wall and shit. I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? But it was badass, so I don't give a shit. It was really cool. But it just annoys me because by the end of this episode, the Cameron's grandpa ends up coming in all hurt, and I think he was having a heart attack or something like that, or he was having having a stroke or something. I think he was having a stroke or a heart attack. I'm not quite sure. But he ended up coming in and ended up telling Cameron yo, don't let them control you. Don't become don't become they weren't the one that really killed your father. It was don't become your father. Don't go down that path. His grief and his anger is what killed him. Don't let anybody control you. And pretty much his last message before he fell on the ground, and I thought he was dead. But Beth was able to call on her mother and say, what should I do? And apparently the gloves have there's a word for it, are able to do. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna say shocky thingies, because on the top of my head I can't think of them. I think defibrillators. There we go, shocky thingies. The defibrillators, and she ended up getting him, and then she ended up restarting his heart, and then he ended up being okay. But then there's a moment where Cameron ends up looking at Courtney, and then Rick ends up looking at Courtney and says, "Court, I'm sorry," or whatever. And that was a really tough moment, because he's like, I'm sorry, but he's he thought they did it. You know what I mean? He's sorry that it escalated to this, but he just thought in his head that they were the ones that did it, and he probably still thinks that until next week's episode when we find out they weren't really behind it. But he just wanted to protect his family at the end of the day. But it looks like, I don't know. I can't really blame Rick for what happened, especially because after Beth got the pinpoint there. But yes, Rick couldn't have been so jump into it and start beating people's ass. But I mean, he wants to protect his family, and I can't hate him for that. I mean? I would be in his position and wanting to protect his family, especially when that's the only family he has, and he's very overprotective, as he should be. But honestly, though, after that, we end up cutting to, Jakeem and we end up cutting to Mike and the Pink Pen going there to this kind of like farm area. It was like the last lab of Dragon Kings that wasn't crossed off on Cindy's list, because they ended up breaking into Cindy's locker. And it was very funny because, you know, the Pink Pen's like, yo, look, they're you know, we're kind of breaking and entering, and some people would say, you like this girl, and this is considered stalking. And I thought that was hilarious because, like, you know, the Pink Pen was saying, oh, you like her, and some people would say this is stalking, and that was funny. And that's how they found the list, where like one location wasn't scratched off yet, and they're like, okay, this must be one, our clue that we have, and two, or our lead in our clue, and then also this must be where Cindy is, possibly. So they end up going there. It's a really dark farm. They end up checking the front. They didn't see anybody, so okay, they're like, let's go around the back, and they're like, okay. Jakeem's like, it's really dark out here, and then that's when, you know, Mike's like, you know, you have a Pink Pen. Use the Pink Pen. He's like, you have your own personal flashlight right on you. He's like, yes. And he said something where it's like, I forget, like the Pink Pen's activation. I forget what it's called. He said something like I forget. But you know, they end up going into like this horse stable in the farm in a stable. And then they're like, they walk through, and then they turn around and they hear growling, and it ends up being some kind of like, it looked like an ape. I thought for a second, is this their version of like Gorilla Grodd? I was like, is that what we're doing here? I don't know. It looked like a mixture between Gorilla Grodd and an abominable snowman. I was very confused. I was like, what the hell is going on? I was like, is this a Gorilla Grodd? Is this an abominable snowman? Is this a character I just don't know? But he said, I'm gonna kill everybody. That's what he said, or some shit like that, or like I think that's what he said. And then it just, you know, it just cut after that. I was like, oh, okay. So honestly, I am very confused of this monster. I don't think this is that monster can't be the thing that's been spying on everybody. Like, no, because the person that we saw spying on everybody kind of like got angry at one point, and I thought it was Mr. Bones. That was the one that was looking on the cameras and was building that puzzle, but I guess I was wrong. So honestly, I'm a little confused of like, okay, so this is the big monster that, you know, it's going to get everybody together. But I was kind of like, he's not the one spying on everybody, and I feel like we're just throwing people out at this point, where it's like, I thought Mr. Bones was the villain of the season. He ended up not being the villain of this season, even though I think they said last season that Mr. Bones was going to be the villain of the season. And to find out, okay, so if Mr. Bones isn't the villain of the season, he actually, from what I can tell, he seems like a good guy. And then us now getting this abominable snowman / Gorilla Grodd, I'm very confused of who's been spying on people, if it wasn't Mr. Bones, and if they're going to say it was this thing. So I'm very confused at this point of who the villain is of this season. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because I like the idea of it was a murder mystery, and I was trying to find out who was on this, who was like looking on people, like looking at everybody through the like, who's been spying on everybody. And I thought again it was Mr. Bones, because I heard last season he was going to be the villain of this season. And I feel like it kind of matched with the murder mystery that he would be the villain of this season. But to find out that it seems like he wasn't the villain of this season, and now we're kind of going with, we're done with that episode with him. I don't think we're ever going to see him again at all. So since we're not getting a season 4, I'm kind of confused of where we're going forward and who's been spying on everybody. But honestly though, I really loved this episode. It just hurts me again that this is it. Season 3 is it of this peak show, and it just bothers the shit out of me. But guys, I'm gonna put up the promo for, I think it's next week's episode. I'm gonna put it up right now.
We found a monster in the woods.
It'll take everyone to stop him.
You haven't been acting like yourself, Rick.
It was an accident!
Cameron, I am so sorry.
Who killed my father, Courtney?
So yeah, you guys just saw that. Literally, you know, Mike and Jakeem came back to Blue Valley and was telling everybody like, no, there's a monster out in the woods. And then Courtney's like, oh, this is the moment where we all need to come together. And it's like, okay, like, and then Rick's like, you know, best, you know, Rick, there's something wrong with you. And he's like, you know, I forget what he says. But honestly, though, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's been going on with Rick, because I said that the hourglass must be changing him because he took out the dampener of just the hourglass being 1 hour. So I think it's just changing his DNA, or maybe the more he uses it, the angrier he gets, because he just has that on him at all times. Maybe you're only supposed to be exposed to the hourglass for only an hour. Maybe that's why Rex put that in place is because he knew that it only needed to be put in place for an hour. Anything past that, it would like start changing you. And I think that's why maybe he put it in place. Maybe he knew that you can only be exposed to the hourglass for only an hour, and that's why he put it only there for an hour. On top of, he said only, Rex believed that, you should only have this much power for a certain amount of time. You shouldn't just have it all the time. That's too much power for a person to handle. And maybe we're seeing the results of the hourglass the hourglass being used for, being on Rick for multiple periods of time, and look what it's doing to him because he's been exposed to it all this time for more than an hour. But guys, I'm really curious to know, what did you guys think about this episode? And also, what do you guys think about this being the last season of Stargirl? I'm really curious to know because not many people said anything on my video when I broke the news, but I'm really curious to know here right now, what do you guys think about this? Do you guys want them to move it to HBO Max? Did you guys have that thought too, where you're like, why don't you just move it to HBO Max instead of canceling the show entirely? And also, or do you guys think that this should be the last season of Stargirl? I feel like it really shouldn't. I feel like we should get at least 3 more seasons, maybe 2 more seasons, to really feel like it wraps up nicely, because I'm a little afraid of it being rushed. Even though Jeff kind of said that he kind of knew going into the season it would be the last season and he wanted to make it the best season yet with a nice conclusion, I'm a little worried about it because I feel like it might feel rushed. But we'll see. Our last episode, like I said, is December 7th. But guys, yet again here, if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, put on those notifications, and like this video. I'd love to have you guys here, part of the family, part of the channel, while we're spreading love, positivity, and motivation. And yet again, guys, we are almost to 600 subscribers. We're making moves. We're making strides. I'm really trying to get to 600. Hopefully, it would be awesome if we can get 600 before December. That would be amazing. Or how before the end of this year would be spectacular. So again here, if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, post notifications, and like this video. Make sure you, again, like this video because it helps out with the YouTube algorithm and it helps build the channel up where more people can come across my videos. So if you, again, support the channel here, make sure you like videos and make sure that, again, you turn on the notification bell, because it really helps out, again, with the YouTube algorithm. It helps build up this channel. But yeah, again, guys, that was the video. Hope everybody has a great day, a safe day, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday for Stargirl episode 10. Peace.